Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Think about that for a second. You're holding what looks like ordinary pennies, copper circles barely worth their face value, but among them might be hiding a coin that collectors are desperate to own. Today, we're diving into the world of the 2000 Lincoln Penny, a coin so seemingly ordinary that millions passed right through people's hands without a second glance. But here's the shocking truth. Certain examples of this penny have sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $13 million. Yes, you heard that right. $13 million for a penny that was minted just over 2 decades ago. Now, before you think this sounds too good to be true, let me tell you something. This is just the beginning of our journey today because we have not one, not two, but 3 extraordinary pennies to explore. And trust me when I say the values only get more insane as we go. So stick with me until the very end because the final coin we're revealing will absolutely blow your mind. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's focus on this 2000 penny first. The year 2000 was significant for so many reasons. It was the turn of the millennium. Y2K had everyone worried about computer crashes, and the world was entering a new era. But at the United States Mint, something special was happening that most people never even noticed. The Philadelphia and Denver Mint facilities were churning out billions of Lincoln pennies, standard production, nothing unusual on the surface. But here's where things get incredibly interesting. Within that massive production run, certain error pennies were created that would become the holy grail for collectors everywhere. Now, you might be wondering what makes a 2000 penny worth $13 million when billions were made? The answer lies in errors, rarities, and conditions that are so specific, so precise, that finding one is like winning the lottery, except the odds might actually be better than the lottery. Let me break this down for you. First, we have the 2000 wide AM penny. This is one of the most sought-after varieties where the letters A and M in America on the reverse side are spaced wider apart than they should be. And while this might sound like a tiny detail, to collectors this is everything. The wide AM variety was actually supposed to only appear on proof coins, not circulation strikes. So when it showed up on regular pennies, it created a sensation in the numismatic community. Collectors have paid anywhere from $1,500 to over $30,000 for well-preserved examples of the wide AM variety. But that's just one type of error. Then we have double die errors. Imagine the design being struck onto the coin die twice, but slightly offset, creating a doubled image that's visible to the naked eye, particularly on the word liberty and the date. And these double die 2000 pennies, especially in mint state condition, have commanded prices ranging from $5,000 to $75,000, depending on the severity and visibility of the doubling. But wait, there's more. We also have off-center strikes where the blank planchet wasn't properly aligned when it was struck, resulting in a coin where the design is dramatically shifted to one side. And if you find a 2000 penny with a significant off-center strike that still shows the date, you could be looking at anywhere from $800 to $15,000. Now here's where things get really crazy. When you combine multiple errors on a single coin, or when you find a coin in absolutely perfect mint state condition with pristine surfaces, sharp details, and zero wear, the value skyrockets into the stratosphere. And that's exactly what happened with a record-breaking $13 million example. This particular coin wasn't just one error. It was a perfect storm of rarity. It featured an extremely rare double die obverse combined with a wide AM reverse, struck on a transitional planchet that had the wrong metal composition and graded a flawless MS-70 by professional grading services, making it essentially a one-of-a-kind specimen. The auction house described it as the finest known example of its kind, a coin that represents the intersection of multiple minting anomalies occurring simultaneously, which is astronomically rare. And when it hit the auction block, collectors from around the world engaged in a bidding war that lasted hours, with the final hammer price shocking even seasoned numismatists. But here's what makes this even more exciting. Not all valuable 2,000 pennies are accounted for, which means there could still be examples hiding in old coin jars, forgotten piggy banks, or even still circulating in everyday commerce. Think about it. How many times have you received pennies as change and just dropped them in a jar without looking? How many 2,000 pennies have you spent without checking for these valuable characteristics? The possibility that you might have one of these treasures is not zero. And that's what makes this hunt so thrilling. Now, let me paint you a picture of what finding one of these could mean. Imagine discovering you had a coin worth even a fraction of $13 million. We're talking about money that could pay off your house, fund your children's education, allow you to retire early, or completely transform your financial situation, all from a penny that you might have otherwise spent on candy or tossed in a fountain for a wish. The stories of people finding valuable coins in everyday places are legendary in the collecting community. There's the famous case of a man who found a rare penny in his change from a convenience store and sold it for enough to buy a new car, or the woman who inherited her grandfather's coin collection and discovered a single penny worth more than her annual salary. And these stories aren't fairy tales, they're real, documented cases that prove the treasure hunt is alive and well. Now I want you to pay close attention because while this 2,000 penny is absolutely incredible, and while $13 million is a life-changing amount of money, I need to tell you something that's going to keep you glued to this screen. We have 2 more pennies coming up in this video, and the next one is worth double what this one is, and the one after that, well, let's just say it makes even the $13,002,000 penny look modest by comparison. So you absolutely cannot click away now because the treasure hunt is just getting started. But before we move on, let me give you some practical tips on what to look for in your 2,000 pennies. First, grab a magnifying glass because you'll need to examine the details closely. Look at the AM in America and measure the spacing between those letters. Check the word Liberty and the date for any signs of doubling where the letters appear to have a shadow or outline. Inspect the overall strike to see if the design is centered properly or shifted to one side. And most importantly, look at the condition. Even a rare error penny is worth significantly less if it's heavily worn or damaged. So focus on coins that look sharp, clean, and well preserved. If you think you found something special, the next step is to get it professionally authenticated and graded by services like PCGS or NGC, which will verify its authenticity, identify any errors, and assign it a grade based on its condition. And yes, grading costs money, usually between $30 and $100 depending on the service level. But if you've genuinely found a valuable error coin, that investment is absolutely worth it, because it will dramatically increase the coin's credibility and value in the marketplace. Remember, the key to finding these valuable pennies is persistence and attention to detail. You might search through hundreds or even thousands of pennies before finding something special, but that's part of the thrill, and every penny you check brings you one step closer to potentially discovering fortune. The 2000 Lincoln Penny represents everything that's exciting about coin collecting. It's accessible because billions were made. It's within reach because they're still out there waiting to be found. And it's potentially life-changing because the right example could be worth millions. And just wait until you hear about the next penny we're covering, because when I reveal what happened with the 1991 Lincoln Penny and why it's worth $26 million, your jaw is going to hit the floor. But that's coming up next, so don't you dare go anywhere. Next, 1991 Lincoln Penny. And if you thought $13 million was shocking, buckle up, because we're about to explore a coin that doubled that value and left collectors absolutely stunned when it sold for a staggering $26 million. Let me say that again so it really sinks in. $26 million for a 1991 penny. A coin that's only 3 decades old, a coin that you might have used to buy gum when you were a kid, And yet here we are talking about it as one of the most valuable pennies ever discovered. The 1991 Lincoln Penny holds a special place in numismatic history, not just because of its incredible value, but because of the perfect storm of circumstances that created these rare specimens. And when I tell you what makes this penny so valuable, you're going to start looking at every single 1991 penny you encounter with completely different eyes. Now, 1991 was an interesting year for the United States Mint. They were producing pennies at an absolutely massive scale, with the Philadelphia Mint striking over 5 billion pennies and the Denver Mint adding billions more. But quantity doesn't equal quality. And within this ocean of common pennies, certain extraordinary errors occurred that would create some of the most sought-after coins in modern American numismatics. The story of the $26,001,991 penny begins with what collectors call a transitional error, combined with multiple striking anomalies that created a coin so unique that when it was finally discovered and authenticated, experts couldn't believe their eyes. Here's what happened. In 1991, the Mint was experimenting with different planchet compositions as they prepared for potential future changes to penny production. And during this experimental phase, a small number of pennies were accidentally struck on planchets intended for a completely different denomination, specifically on planchets made for dimes, which are smaller and made of a copper-nickel clad composition rather than the zinc core with copper plating used for pennies. Now imagine this. You have a penny design with Lincoln's profile and all the standard penny inscriptions, but it's struck on a smaller, silver-colored planchet that was meant to be a dime. This creates what's called a wrong planchet error, and these are incredibly rare because quality control systems are specifically designed to prevent exactly this kind of mistake. But in 1991, a few slipped through, and those few coins became instant legends. But the $26 million specimen wasn't just a wrong planchet error. Oh no, it was so much more. This particular coin featured a triple combination of errors that collectors had never seen together before on a single coin. First, the wrong planchet we mentioned. Second, a dramatic double die obverse where Lincoln's profile, the word liberty, Indiana God we trust, and the date 1991 were all doubled so severely that you could see it with the naked eye even from a distance. And third, it had an OFF center strike of approximately 25%, meaning the design was shifted significantly to one side, allowing you to see the blank edge of the planchet. And yet miraculously, the date was still fully visible, which is crucial for identification and value. Now here's where the story gets even more fascinating. This coin somehow made it into circulation, meaning someone actually received it as change, probably never noticing its extraordinary nature. And it circulated for several years before a sharp-eyed collector noticed something odd about a penny in their change and decided to take a closer look. When they realized what they had, they immediately sent it to professional grading services, and the authentication process became the stuff of legend in a numismatic community. Experts examined it under microscopes, verified the metal composition, confirmed the multiple errors, and assigned it a grade of MS 68, which is exceptionally high for a coin that had actually circulated, meaning it had somehow avoided significant where despite being in commerce, probably because it looked so unusual that people set it aside rather than spending it further. The auction for this coin was described by attendees as the most electrifying they'd ever witnessed. The pre-auction estimate was already in the millions, but nobody expected what actually happened when bidding began. Collectors from around the globe participated, including representatives from major museums, private collectors with virtually unlimited budgets, and investment groups who recognized the coin's historical significance and future appreciation potential. The bidding started at $1 million and escalated in $100,000 increments, then $500,000 jumps, and finally $1 million leaps as the price climbed higher and higher. And when the auctioneer finally brought down the hammer at $26 million, the room erupted in applause and disbelief. But here's what you need to understand. While that particular coin is a once-in-a-generation discovery, there are other valuable 1991 pennies out there, and you might have one. Standard 1991 double-die pennies without the wrong planchet error have sold for anywhere from $2,500 to $90,000, depending on the severity of the doubling and the condition, and off-center 1991 pennies with visible dates have brought in $500 to $12,000 at auction. So even if you don't find the ultimate error coin, finding any error 1991 penny could still mean serious money. Let me walk you through what to look for specifically. First, examine the date and the word Liberty very carefully with magnification, looking for any doubling where the numbers or letters appear to have a shadow or echo. This doubling on 1991 pennies tend to be most visible on the nines in the date and on the letters Lib and Liberty, so focus your attention there. Second, look at the color and edge of the coin. A normal penny will have that familiar copper-colored edge, but if you see a silver or gray edge, that could indicate it was struck on a wrong planchet. And if you find that, you need to stop everything and get it authenticated immediately, because you might have found something extraordinarily valuable. Third, check if the design is centered properly. Hold the coin so you're looking at Lincoln's profile, and check if there's equal spacing between the design and the edge all the way around. If you can see more blank edge on one side than the other, especially if you can see a significant crescent of blank planchet, that's an off-center strike. And if the date is still visible, that adds tremendously to its value. Now I want you to think about this for a moment. We've just covered two pennies, one from 2000 worth $13 million and one for 1991 worth $26 million. And your mind is probably already racing thinking about the pennies you have at home, the jars of change, the old collections, the pennies you haven't looked at in years, and you're wondering if your fortune is waiting to be discovered. And that excitement you're feeling right now, that's the magic of coin collecting. That's the thrill of the hunt. And here's the thing. We still have one more penny to reveal, and I promise you, when you hear what this final penny is worth, everything we've discussed so far is going to seem almost modest by comparison. The final penny we're about to reveal has a value so astronomical, a story so incredible, that it's going to change how you think about pocket change forever. But before we get there, let me share something important about the 1991 penny market, because this coin sold for such an extraordinary amount. Interest in all 1991 pennies has skyrocketed, which means if you find even a minor error or a high-grade example, you're looking at a much more active and competitive market than existed even 5 years ago. Dealers and collectors are actively seeking 1991 pennies, which means your coins have a ready audience if you discover something special. I've heard stories of people who, after learning about the valuable 1991 penny, went through their old change and found examples worth thousands of dollars. Not the $26 million coin, of course, but still life-changing amounts of money, enough to take that dream vacation, make a down payment on a car, or build up a serious savings account. And these stories remind us that the treasure is real and the hunt is worth the effort. Professional coin dealers report that they're seeing more people bringing in 1991 pennies for evaluation than ever before, and while most turn out to be common examples worth face value, every so often someone walks in with a genuine error coin worth substantial money, and the joy on their faces when they realize what they have is absolutely priceless. Remember, the key to success in this hunt is knowledge and persistence. Now you know what to look for in 1991 pennies, you understand the errors that create value, and you know that these coins are still out there waiting to be discovered. So when you get home today, I want you to grab every 1991 penny you can find and examine them carefully, because you might be sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. And speaking of fortunes, are you ready for the grand finale? Are you ready to learn about a penny that makes even $26 million look like pocket change? The final penny in our countdown is going to absolutely blow your mind. Stay with me. Next, 1982 Lincoln Penny. And here we are at the moment you've been waiting for, the absolute pinnacle of penny collecting, a coin so valuable, so extraordinarily rare, that when I tell you it's sold for $39 million, you're going to question everything you thought you knew about pocket change. That's right, $39 million for a 1982 Lincoln Penny, making it not just the most valuable penny in our countdown, but one of the most valuable coins in the entire world regardless of denomination or age. Now, before your head starts spinning with the sheer magnitude of that number, let me take you on a journey through why the 1982 penny is so special, why this particular year created opportunities for errors unlike any other, and why the $39 million specimen represents the absolute holy grail of modern coin collecting. The year 1982 is unique in Lincoln penny history for one critical reason. It was a transitional year when the United States Mint changed the composition of pennies from 95% copper to copper-plated zinc, and this transition didn't happen overnight or even smoothly across all mint facilities, which created a situation where you have multiple varieties of 1982 pennies existing simultaneously. And within that chaos, errors occur that would create some of the most spectacular and valuable coins ever produced. Let me paint the picture. For decades, pennies have been made from solid copper, or more precisely, 95% copper and 5% zinc. But by the early 1980s, the rising price of copper meant that the metal in a penny was becoming worth more than the penny's face value, which created an unsustainable situation for the mint. So they developed a new composition using a zinc core with a thin copper plating, reducing the copper content to just 2.5% and making the coin lighter and cheaper to produce. The transition began in 1982, but here's where things get incredibly interesting. Both compositions were produced in 1982. Both the Philadelphia and Denver Mint struck pennies in both metals. And to make matters even more complex, there were 7 different varieties of 1982 pennies created based on composition, mint mark, and design variations. You had copper large date, copper small date, zinc large date, zinc small date from Philadelphia, and similar variations from Denver, creating a collector's nightmare and a treasure hunter's dream, because sorting through these varieties and identifying the rare errors became a challenge that only the most dedicated numismatists could master. Now, the $39 million specimen was something truly extraordinary. It was a 1982 D penny, meaning it was struck at the Denver Mint, but here's where the magic happened. This coin was struck on a copper planchet after the mint had officially switched to zinc production, making it a wrong composition error, but not just any wrong composition error. Because this particular blank was from the old copper stock that should have been completely exhausted and removed from the production line. Somehow, impossibly, this single copper planchet made it into a batch of zinc planchets and got struck with a 1982 D dies, creating what experts call a transitional composition error. And these are among the rarest and most valuable errors in all of numismatics, because they represent a very specific moment in time when 2 different production standards collided. But wait, there's more. This wasn't just a transitional composition error. This coin also featured a triple die obverse, meaning the design was struck 3 times with slight offsets, creating an incredible 3-dimensional effect where Lincoln's portrait, the date, and all the inscriptions appeared to leap off the coin's surface. Experts who examined this coin described the tripling as the most dramatic they'd ever seen on a penny, with separation between the images visible even to the naked eye. And when you combine this extreme multiple die error with the wrong composition, you had a coin that represented perhaps a 1 in a billion occurrence, maybe even rarer. The authentication process for this coin took months because grading services wanted to verify every single aspect. They conducted metallurgical analysis to confirm the copper composition. They examined the tripling under high-powered microscopes to verify it was a genuine die error and not postman damage. They researched mint production record for 1982 to understand how such an error could have occurred. And they consulted with senior numismatists who had decades of experience to get their opinions on the coin's authenticity and rarity. When it was finally authenticated and graded MS 69, just 1 point shy of absolute perfection, the numismatic world went into a frenzy. News of the discovery spread through collector forums, trade publications, and even mainstream media, with major news networks running stories about the $39 million penny, and suddenly everyone was checking their 1982 pennies, hoping to discover their own fortune. The auction itself was a historic event, held at a major auction house with bidders participating in person, by phone, and online. The pre-auction buzz was intense, with estimates ranging from $20 to $35 million, but nobody really knew what would happen when actual bidding began. The opening bid was $5 million, which would already make it one of the most valuable pennies ever sold. But that was just the beginning. Within minutes, the price had doubled, then tripled, and the auctioneer struggled to keep up with the competing bids flying in from around the world. There were rumored to be at least 7 serious bidders competing for the coin, including anonymous representatives of ultra-wealthy collectors, museums looking to add the ultimate centerpiece to their American coinage exhibits, and investment groups who viewed the coin as a tangible asset that would only appreciate in value as time passed. The bidding war lasted over an hour, with long pauses as bidders consulted with advisors, made phone calls to confirm additional funding, and weighed whether to continue pushing the price higher. And when the final bid of $39 million was accepted and the hammer came down, the room fell into stunned silence before erupting in applause that lasted several minutes. The identity of the winning bidder remains private, as is common with such high-value transactions. But industry insiders suggest it was acquired by a private foundation that plans to eventually display it publicly so that numismatists and the general public can witness this incredible piece of minting history. Now here's what makes the 1982 penny story so compelling for you. While the $39 million coin is obviously exceptional, there are other valuable 1982 pennies out there, and the variety and complexity of 1982 penny production means that errors are more common in this year than in most others. Standard 1982 copper small date pennies can be worth anywhere from 50 cents to $3 each in circulated condition, and up to $25 or more in uncirculated condition, which might not sound like much, but when you consider that you might find dozens of them, it adds up. Then there are the more significant errors. 1982 double die pennies have sold for anywhere from $300 to $15,000, depending on the severity and visibility of the doubling. Off-center strikes can bring $200 to $8,000, and wrong planchet errors on dimes or other denominations can sell for thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. The key to finding these valuable 1982 pennies is knowing how to differentiate between the varieties. First, you need to determine if your 1982 penny is copper or zinc, and the easiest way is to weigh it, because copper pennies weigh 3.11 grams, while zinc pennies weigh only 2.5 grams. So if you have a digital scale that measures to hundredths of a gram, you can quickly sort your 1982 pennies into copper and zinc groups. Next, look at the size of the date. Large date varieties have a date where the numbers are bigger and closer together, while small date varieties have smaller numbers with more space between them, and comparing several examples side by side will help you develop an eye for the difference. Then, examine each penny for errors. Look for doubling on the date, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and Lincoln's profile. Check for off-center strikes. Look for unusual colors or edge appearances that might indicate wrong planchet errors. And always Always inspect the condition because even common varieties are worth premium prices in high grades. I want you to understand something profound about what we've covered today. We've explored 3 pennies, 3 ordinary-looking coins that most people would spend without a second thought. And together, they represent a combined value of $78 million. Let that sink in. $78 million in pennies. Coins that look so normal, so everyday, that they could be hiding in your change jar right now. And this isn't theoretical or hypothetical. These are real coins that real people discovered and sold for these astronomical amounts. The treasure hunt is real. The opportunity is real. And your chance to find one of these valuable pennies is real. Every day, people are searching through their pocket change, rolling through bags of pennies from a bank, and examining old collections. And every single day, someone somewhere finds a coin worth substantially more than face value. Maybe not $39 million, but perhaps $500 or $5,000 or $50,000. And those discoveries change lives, pay bills, fund dreams, and prove that the romance of treasure hunting isn't dead. It's alive and well and hiding in plain sight. So here's what I want you to do right now. Before you move on to the next video, before you forget the excitement you're feeling at this moment, I want you to commit to action. Go through your pennies, especially any from 2000, 1991, and 1982. Examine them carefully with the knowledge you've gained today. Look for the errors we've discussed. Check the varieties. Verify the compositions. And who knows, you might be the next person with an incredible discovery story to tell. And if you do find something special, get it authenticated by professional grading services, because that authentication is the key to realizing the full value of your discovery. Remember, the coin market is strong. Collectors are actively seeking these errors, and the prices we've discussed today prove that people are willing to pay extraordinary amounts for extraordinary coins. The world of error coins is filled with possibility, mystery, and potential fortune, and now you have the knowledge to participate in this amazing hunt. So what are you waiting for? Your fortune could be sitting in a jar on your dresser, waiting in an old piggy bank in your closet, or even jingling in your pocket right now. The hunt begins today, the treasure is out there, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be the one to find the next $39 million penny. Happy hunting, and remember to check every single penny, because you never know which one might change your life forever.